Let me see if it puts it. Like that on the phone.
Check one, two.
I did not. It's not involved.
I think it's later. Vanessa just said, I'm saying. No, it's fine on the phone.
Did you stay with Santa Call?
Okay. I just reported my first one. That's pretty cool.
So I had you on open.
Y'all ready to go?
It was good. It's on. Like email from. About 10 years. All right, gotta go.
All right, welcome, everybody. Today is April the 19th. This is the workshop for the regular city commission meeting. Will be held on Monday, April 24th. If I can get a roll call from City Clerk Vanessa Castillo.
Yes. Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner Yates.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtzone.
Here.
Mayor Dan.
Here. Okay, looking at the presentations, we've got a couple that'll be tonight. Number one is the update on quiet zones. MJ?
Morning, Mayor, or afternoon, Mayor, City Commissioner. It's been a quick day. Yeah, let's get one. All right, so just a quick overview of where we're at with quiet zones. I know we talked in December, so this is just a step from where we are. Just a reminder, the CSX line runs across Winter Haven's western boundary. There are 5 crossings, 3 of which are over city roads. And due to the proximity of those crossings, it basically means trains are blowing their horns for about an entire 2-mile stretch through the city. Residents in the vicinity of those tracks requested a quiet zone be created. So the city's been looking into that and kind of working through that for a while. To get that quiet zone in place, we have to make physical modifications to the roadway. Basically, the approaches to those railroad crossings, we need to try to create barriers so that people can't cut around the gates as they come down because the horn won't be blown anymore. If a quiet zone goes into effect, that gives the conductor the discretion to blow the horn. So they're not required right now, they're required to blow it. So they would not be required to blow it. But if they have an incident, if there's a car on the track or some reason that makes them feel like they need to blow the horn, they can blow the horn. But if they blow the horn without reason, they're subject to a fine for that. So that's kind of the balance that we have. These are the crossings. So starting in the northwest, Coleman Road, 24th Street, 21st Street, 15th Street, and then North Lake Ship Drive. So if you recall, we went through, we did feasibility, we budgeted for the design improvements, we completed the designs, we have a 100% complete set of plans ready to be constructed. We went through to issue the notice of intent. There we go. I hit a roadblock previously. We had to spend a lot of time kind of pecking up the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration food chain to get a clear answer and some direction forward, which we finally did. And that was in December of last year. So we issued that notice of intent right about Christmas. That's when all of the folks should have received it. And that's basically saying Winter Haven intends to create a quiet zone. If you have any comments, provide them in the next 60 days. That 60-day comment period closed in March with no comments. So that means we are now allowed to move forward. That's a major hurdle for this whole process. So that we've issued a notice of intent before, we've gotten comments back, and that's where we had to follow up on those comments. And now we have kind of a clear direction forward. So the next step is constructing.
MJ, would you go back that one? I want
Yeah.
to see where those intersections were that you were.
Yeah.
I just want to get a quick snapshot of that. So I have it right there.
There we go.
Right there, that one. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. So like I said, we now we're at the stage of constructing the safety enhancements. And then we will establish the quiet zone with the FRA. And so the construction of those safety enhancements, we need to get a right of entry agreement from CSX. So that is permission to be able to do some work within their right of way. So we're working through that process with them right now. Once we have that, we'll be able to bid the project out for construction. Once we award construction, that construction should go pretty quick. So that we could have the construction completed this summer. And then once that construction is done, we issue what's called a notice of establishment. And that is basically just the city saying, we've made all the improvements to meet the requirements that the FRA has. We are establishing the quiet zone. There's no additional approval really needed in that process, but then we provide 21 days notice, and then that law goes into effect that if they blow the horns as they come through there, they're subject to a fine. And that's kind of an example of what the improvements look like. Very simple. At the end of the day, a very simple construction from a construction perspective. That's it.
MJ, quick question. Anybody got questions? Does the conductor have any flexibility at all? Because the complaints I get, sometimes the conductor will just give a little toot and other times they'll just blast the horn and wake everybody up. Do they have is it hard and fast what they're supposed to do, or is it discretion, or do they, you know what I mean?
Question. I don't fully know the answer to that, but I know that right now they're required to blow it at each of the crossings. And what happens, if you look back at that map, although all those crossings are within 2 miles and those trains are coming through at 30 to 60 miles an hour, and they're blowing the horn at each crossing, you're basically blowing it all the way through town. And you got to keep in mind too that you have, those are the crossings that we're really able to do something about right now. But there are other crossings that get up into Auburndale. There are crossings in the southeastern part of the county. And so it really just depends on the spacing of those, I think, is the where you hear kind of that steady blowing versus maybe a long gap and a long pole.
Can we make a request that they just be nice and just, you know what I mean, versus blast and wake every.
I'm gonna say a better course of action for us is probably get this right of entry agreement with CSX finished, put these things in the ground, and then they'll just stop blowing the horns altogether.
Yeah, okay.
I'll share with you a little bit of levity and humor. So I went out this afternoon or this morning to, just sharing this with the city attorney. Went to this morning to take a look at the roundabout construction at Westlake Eloise and Eloise Loop Road. Of course, it's blocked off, so I had to park on the west side of the train tracks there and walk across the train tracks. And I was up walking around the roundabout to see how construction was coming. I heard the train horn. And it was probably down around, I'm going to say Pollard Road was the whistle blows that I was hearing. And then I could hear it was getting a little closer. Must have been coming across Eagle Lake Loop Road. And at about that point, I was in a full sprint because my truck was on the opposite side of the train tracks. And I was afraid I wasn't going to get back. So that was a time when the train horn was beneficial to this particular individual.
It helped you get some exercise, whether you wanted it or not. Good deal. All right, any other questions for Mr. MD here? All right, thank you, sir. Next up is the Sun and Fun update. Alex?
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. I'm excited to share with you the after action report for our Sun and Fun 2023 out at Winter Haven Airport. I'm joined tonight to my right by Troy Heidel. He's our airport operations supervisor. And really, this is one of the first main tasks Troy had, was to spearhead the Sun and Fun event, which is our largest of the year. He's put together a presentation that he'll provide, a number of operations and sort of the activity that took place during Sun and Fun. So I'll hand it over to Troy.
Thank you. As Alex said, my name is Troy Heidel, Operations Supervisor for the City of Winter Haven. I'm going to go over briefly about our 2023 Sun and Fun year at the airport. I'm going to talk to you about our parking plan, some of the services we offer at the FBO, some of the fees we utilize when parking aircraft, our shuttle service. I'll go over briefly our fuel sales, and then I'll talk about the addition of our control tower as well. As you can see here on this map, the north ramp, or our north sod, which is outlined by the green, that is our primary primetime parking spots. That is right there on the FBO. That's where we park all our larger jet traffic and any single engine traffic that we could fit in the grass. Now, during the time, by the middle of the week, we found that the parking lot was getting too full. We would utilize what we call our south sod, and we would transition that traffic to the south ramp. Now, we would get our customers from the south ramp to the north ramp utilizing a shuttle service, which was made up of volunteers from other departments of the city. And they would drive those customers across down 21st Street and bring them on over to the FBO to us. Going across the middle of the map there, you're going to see some red X's. That is our runway 1129. We actually closed that down this year, a little bit different from years past, just to add an extra element of safety to the airfield. Some of the services that we do offer at the FBO, customers can come in there, they can pay their parking fees, they can order fuel. They can purchase their Sun and Fun tickets. We actually sold 309 Sun and Fun tickets. That makes us the largest third-party seller of Sun and Fun tickets of any area. We offer a shuttle service that translates customers from our FBO and takes them right inside the gate of the Sun and Fun in Lakeland itself. They don't have to stop at the ticket windows. They can go right inside and get right to the ramp. We have rental car drop off, and then we also sell merchandise there as well. During the week, we utilize a flat fee. Instead of offering a daily overnight fee, we utilize a flat fee throughout Sun and Fun. We charge $25 flat, and that's for our single engine. We charge $50 for our larger twins, and then our larger jets, we run off a sliding scale based off size. We did a total of 133 weekly tie downs, and that's not to be confused with our daily transit numbers, which we will get to here shortly. As I just briefly spoke about, we offer a shuttle service, which goes from the front gate of our terminal to the front gate of Sun and Fun. We sold 105 tickets, totaling for $2,100 for people to transport back and forth to the Sun and Fun event itself. Our fuel fit sales for Sun and Fun, we did 9,201 gallons of gas, 3,338 gallons of jet fuel, for a total number of 12,539 gallons. And to put that in perspective, that's equivalent to 300, on average, about 300 individual fuelings that our guys did throughout the course of that week. Just looking at the numbers year to date a little bit, you can see our numbers for March of this year. We're already up by a little over 1,500 gallons, or we were over 1,500 gallons compared to previous years, which puts us well on track to have some record-breaking months ahead of us at the airport for fuel sales. We utilize, during Sun and Fun, we do utilize the control tower. That tower is open Monday through Sunday, 8 to 5. Mr. T. Michael had the experience to come out and see the tower for himself firsthand. I think he was pretty flabbergasted, if you could say me, by the amount of traffic we had out there. Looking at this, the numbers last year, we did 862 operations in our tower last year. This year, we did 1,632 operations throughout the course of the week. So yeah, I've talked briefly about our weekly tie down. That was 100 something. Well, now you can see the amount of traffic we had out there, 1,632 through the course of that week. Yep, that's including takeoffs and landings at the airport. Before I wrap this up, one thing I do want to say thank you to all of the department heads. We had this operation is huge, and it takes we're a small group at the airport, so we rely heavily on other departments, and we've had volunteers throughout almost every department in the city, driving shuttles, greeting customers, answering phones, taking water out to pilots. The other departments really stepped up and gave us a slew of volunteers that really helped us make this event a success. So y'all do appreciate that. Do y'all have any questions?
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I've got a question, but it's not necessarily regarding the Sun and Fun. So, and Alex, if you don't have it ready tonight, that's fine. But at some point, just curious on an update on the air traffic control school and the electronic version.
Yes, sir. Good evening. So I actually am putting together that agenda item for a upcoming. I'm hoping to bring that item forth in the May 8th City Commission meeting. I have a meeting scheduled with T. Michael next week to go over all the particulars related to the digital air traffic control tower project. I think I've got all of the information we need as far as staffing the tower, the construction of the tower, how it'll be maintained, all of that packaged together and ready to present to the commission very soon.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Well, that was my question. And then my other one is any updates you can give us on the seaplane headquarters out there, the construction of the national headquarters there?
Unfortunately, no, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an update as far as that concern. I talk to Steve McCaughey regularly. He's the president of the Seaplane Pilots Association. I know they've continued to conduct fundraising efforts to construct that building. I think at this point, we as a city are going to need to take another look at that land lease, as there's certain stipulations of timelines, and I think we're likely coming up on another deadline for that, and maybe we need to reopen that discussion. But as of today, they're still in the fundraising stage.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, just along those same lines, Mayor and Commissioners, just a reminder, Well, we're waiting on towers and we're waiting on seaplane headquarters. We do have our ribbon cutting for our Aerospace Academy coming up May 3rd, Wednesday, May 3rd at 10 a.m. So that should be on your calendars, but that will be our next major endeavor at the airport.
What date, T?
The May 3rd. I'm showing it as 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I do just want to offer a comment if I could. I did have a chance, and Troy, thank you for taking me out and showing me around and sticking me in the tower for a little while. It was scary, I'm not gonna lie, to see that much radio communication going on, and these people were juggling cats like nothing I've ever seen, but watching Alex and his team out there, I had shared with some other the city's leadership. It was not too dissimilar from watching spring training and what it took back in those days to ramp up for spring training of getting facilities ready and getting everything rocking and rolling out there. It's a Herculean effort. And then when it actually gets underway, it's all about service. And to see Alex behind the desk, taking waters to people and doing fuel tickets and being just a concierge and Troy and the entire gang out there, it was extremely impressive. And I think that Winter Haven makes a tremendous impact and impression on the aviation community, thanks mainly to the staff that are involved. The facilities are amazing, but the staff, you can have great facilities, but if your staff is terrible, they're never coming back. And by the same token, you can have horrible facilities and great staff and people will come back. We're blessed to have great facilities and a staff that far exceeds even the quality of those facilities. So my compliments to Alex and the team for everything they did during that week of Sun and Fun.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Yates?
One other question. How did the restaurant do out there?
Yes, that's an excellent question. The restaurant fares well. I would say they're not extraordinarily over busy out the door because, the reality is most people want to make it to Sun and Fun right away. So there is mostly pass through, but they definitely have an increased amount of traffic that week.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, good deal. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, ordinance second reading. We've been through this already on Lake Hamilton.
No changes.
Then we've got ordinance second reading on appropriating funds for fiscal year ending 2030 to 2023.
No change.
Consent agenda.
So Mayor, if you'd like, I can just run through these real quick for you.
Yeah, just give us a executive.
High level. So 10A, this is a HOA agreement for the Country Club Estates subdivision for our police department to patrol their streets and enforce traffic laws. Not uncommon for us to do that by interlocal. 10B, 10C, and 10D all pertain to an interconnect for potable water between the city of Winter Haven and Haines City. This would be out off of US 27 in the general area of State Road 544, Lucerne Park Road. 3 different documents there. One is the interlocal agreement. One is the memorandum of understanding that pertains to maybe some adjustments we have to do with Swift Mud regarding our consumptive use permit and drawdowns that could impact Lake Eva. And the third one is the actual design, engineering, permitting for that interconnect with Dewberry Engineers. At the end of the day, I think in the nutshell, we'll spend around $3 million for all of the work that has to happen out there. We'll split that 50-50 with Haines City, that they'll pick up about 1.5 million of that. We will sell them up to 500,000 gallons per day of potable water until such time that they can avail themselves to the water that comes, the AWS water that comes from the southeast well field, or sooner if we're not able to produce the water. But this is we see this as a win for Winter Haven, certainly a win for Haines City. It allows us to sell additional water that we don't have a demand for today, but does not put us on the hook for providing that water indefinitely. So I think it's a very good opportunity for us.
My understanding, Mayor and Commissioners, that these items are on the City of Haines City agenda for approval at their meeting on Thursday this week, I believe tomorrow.
Next item is the
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask one question on that? So is there an estimate on how much water set, like dollar amount, what we would expect to generate?
Gary, do you have an estimate on what that revenue might be. We can certainly have that for you for Monday if we don't have it this evening.
I don't have it with me right now, but you can
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, it's up to 500,000 gallons per day, and it's based upon our current rate structure. Item 10E, this is an adjustment to the task order that we have with Strong Trout Architects. This is for the Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center. As you know, we're moving that project forward. We just had a great meeting with them and our construction manager at risk, Collage, earlier today that Andy Palmer and Julie Adams facilitated. We have to expand that design scope because obviously we're doing a bigger project now and we are advancing that at this point. So the original design scope was done in 2021 and only contemplated a renovation because we're now, raising the whole site and starting with a new design. We have additional architectural fees that total $617,640. Those will be added to the original purchase order, bringing the total for design of the project to $1,298,040. This represents around 7 to 8% of the anticipated construction costs, and that's certainly in line with what we would expect to see.
Questions on that, anybody? I got a quick question. Go ahead, Nat.
I didn't realize that the initial fee was for renovation.
Yeah, it took into account so when we first started the project, we were going to just renovate the building, do some ADA improvements, expand the fitness center. That's going way back. And certainly early on in our discussions with Strong Trout, we had changed that direction in our discussions even last May when we were doing our public meetings. So they paused some of that design work and would assign those dollars that were originally afforded to them for design towards this full development site.
Okay, so in essence, if they were designing it to start out with, then if that's the approximate cost?
Yes, sir.
So this project has gone up considerably as far as dollars. And how confident we are with this is it, and we're not going to get into this thing and all of a sudden it's going to be another 1 million, 2 million, whatever. I mean, we're up to 19 million. I know construction at risk and everything, inflation's nuts, blah, 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 all that. But how do we get to the point? Do we buy a bond or whatever? How do we make sure we know what we're getting into?
I think that the fact that we're doing a CMART risk delivery project gives us the greatest confidence in that. Since December, we've worked with the architectural team and the construction team to value engineer, to look at different design options, to look at finishes and deliveries of, is it stem wall, is it CMU wall, all these different pieces to get the best value in that, assess that against construction industry costs of today. Even today, we were having that conversation about where we can, try and make some minor tweaks to lock those prices in. The longer we wait to deliver, the less confidence I have in that, because
Deliver meaning start.
get it underway. Yep.
We'll sign a contract with somebody.
Exactly. So they are going into design. We cut them loose realistically today. I mean, we've got to get through Monday's agenda, but they know what's coming. So we'll go into development of the construction documents. And then, Andy, if I'm not mistaken, that was expected to take until around December, and then construction to start right thereafter. They do factor in a contingency with this project. There's a 5% contingency towards the construction. So, I can't control, and I don't think any of us would expect anybody to be able to control what could happen within the labor market, what could happen within the fuel market. Those are the things that would drive prices at this point.
Theoretically, we're in April. We're not going to know for sure till December.
I think we feel confident where we are.
But I mean, we're not going to know for sure till December.
It's
Because
a fair statement.
we got 6 months where prices can, 8 months, the prices go up.
Also have 6 to 8 months where they can come down. So, there's a little bit of risk on both sides of that. We've seen things come down. We've seen asphalt come down. We've seen concrete come down. We've seen certainly the
We will benefit-
availability
we
of
will
product.
benefit from that, even though we're getting this. We're putting it out there, it's 19 million. And then we're
Still
the
got to be
government,
bid. They still have to, those prices are competitively bid.
And we'll do a bid, we will try to do a,
Yep. Same process we used on the field house.
okay. Any other questions, anybody? Okay, thank you, T.
Yes, sir. The next project you have, 10F, this is the award of dual projects. It's Joyce Davis Park and Sidewalk Cafe. You may recall, we took those two projects and bid them out together. We got two bids for that effort. And Cathcart Construction, they're out of Winter Springs. They were the lowest responsive bidder on that. And Carter K is being designated or recommended to provide project management services during this project under their existing project management contract. The Downtown CRA Committee met last Wednesday, I believe it was, and they recommended approval of a resolution that will come to you as the CRA board Monday evening. It does some rearranging within their budget to allow this project to move forward. It doesn't add any more money to their budget. It simply looks at some of the fund balance that they have and some of the projects that are coming in under budget and allocates funds there. At the end of the day, the total project, including the Carter K project management amount and a 10% contingency, totals out at 2.9 million. So we're recommending that this be awarded to Cathcart Construction. So we can move that one forward.
There were no local bidders that we can,
Sorry?
no Winter Haven bidders.
Don't. Tucker was the second low bid.
But he was.
Was it close enough to use the local bidding option? Wasn't close enough? Okay,
10G is a TECO easement out at the airport. You just did one of these a couple weeks ago with Frontier. This is generally similar to that. The 21st Street where it runs through there is not actually a right of way. It's city property as part of the airport. So this would be an easement for TECO to do maintenance on their infrastructure out there. And then 10H, this is Arbor Day, tree giveaway events. And through a grant award, again, we've been a tree city for over 20 years. We received funding for two separate tree giveaway events. One will be on March 4th, the other on April 28th. And those are funded by a $1,500 grant from the Arbor Day Foundation. So this just authorizes Savannah Winstanley to accept that grant on our behalf.
you saying like March 4th that we've already gone past or next year, March 4th?
Did I say March 4th? My apologies. If I did. You did one on March 4th.
Second, okay.
Thank you. They like to
Okay.
trip me up.
Any questions, anybody on the consent agenda as a whole? Okay.
Resolutions, 2324, this is just the formality of accepting the warranty deed on the Mark Macy property that we, remember we worked through that. This was a code compliance matter.
Mhm.
On that note, that property is subject for demolition coming up in the coming days. That's been awarded to the demo company, so that's moving forward as.
I've been getting several comments on what we could do with that property. Are we gonna have some sort of a public hearing or public comment on what we're
I
doing?
think we
with
need
that?
to have dialogue amongst the commission on how you'd like to proceed with that.
Okay.
Once we have it clean.
I've just had some people live out there that've got some very specific ideas what they'd like to see, of course. So, yeah.
2325, this is a request by Central Avenue Library LLC for a final plat approval. This is the old library on Central Avenue. They're basically just combining the library with the lot that is to the east of it into a single subdivision of two lots there.
Hey, T or Eric, isn't Cassidy improving at the old not Elks Club?
Masonic Lodge.
Masonic Lodge, they bought that and they're doing that, okay.
Don't know what it is, but they've done a lot of work on it.
Yeah, very pretty what they're doing. It's office, the offices. Yeah. That's nice. I mean, they're really improving the area, so good for them. Keep going.
2328, this is, I'd like to give our amazing CFO some opportunity to present on this one this evening. This is something that came about when we were discussing the issue of what to do with last year's fund balance and how we could put that towards Winter Haven Recreation Cultural Center project, we started looking at additional policies. So CJ Scott, our CFO, did research on what other cities had in place as far as financial policies that would guide budgeting and procurement processes and everything in between, and crafted a document that we are asking for your consideration to adopt under resolution. With that, let me pass it off to CJ and let her present on this a little bit.
Pretty much covered it. We did a reserve fund policy, but we got modified with the other concepts, and nothing had been approved by the commission. So this is more robust and comprehensive, and it just states what we stand for.
The one significant change I would say that's within the policies, and it falls under the reserves. We've had a lot of conversation over the past few years about what's an appropriate amount to have in fund balance. And on page 3 in section 2 under fund balance and reserve policies. As you know, we have a policy that says we'll hold a fund balance of 17% for the general fund. We modify the language in here to read that the city will work towards an unassigned fund balance of 30% of the general fund's current fiscal year adopted operating expenditures and transfers out, while keeping a targeted unassigned fund balance of 17%. Basically, what that is saying is that we're going to hold that threshold at the bottom of 17%, but our target goal is to have 30% in there, so that if we have a natural disaster, if we have a crash in the economy, that we're certainly much better positioned for that. And if we have to draw down on it, we don't draw below that 17%. The other thing that we added to that policy was that fund balance above and beyond that 30% may be transferred to the construction fund to defray costs and cover contingencies, as recommended by the city manager and approved by the city commission. And I shared that with you in some individual sessions prior, that one of the things that is a challenge for us oftentimes is a project comes in and it's $500,000 short based upon changes in the economy from when it was budgeted to when it was actually implemented. And we were scrambling to find those dollars. When we can set aside excess fund balance into a contingency fund within the construction fund itself, that frees up a lot of time and energy, because you've got those dollars there then to allocate that towards that. When you've got 6 projects and they're all, off by a couple $100,000, you'll pull your hair out trying to figure out, well, how are we going to make this up? By being able to do this method, I think it better positions us to tackle those decisions when we need to. As Ms. Scott said, the rest of this is really things that we've always been doing. It just formalizes it in policy and presents it for your adoption. This will become part of our budget document and our guiding policies for all fiscal decisions we make going forward.
Okay, Brian's got a question. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
So I understand it's 30% is the target. When the auditors look at that, let's say we're at 20% or 25% for the next 10 years. Can the auditors cite us for never reaching that 30%?
But like in 2008, when the market crashed, everybody lost their funds. It was like 50% or less. So they would not, that wouldn't be enough.
Okay. And I have mixed emotions on the 7, because these are public funds and I get having a reserve and I'm fine with this language here, but I think sometimes you can get too much money in reserve. And I know that's probably an oxymoron, but it's really the taxpayers' money that we're harboring and utilizing for that rainy day. And it gives me a little bit of heartburn when that money's not being utilized for the taxpayers, other than being utilized as a rainy day fund. But
Understood.
Can I ask a question?
Yep. Oh, yeah, fire away.
And we can adjust that amount to anything we want, isn't it? Can't we?
Yeah, as a commission, it's a fiscal policy of the organization. So as a commission, you can adjust it at any point. I will say that, when it comes to our bond ratings, those are items that come into play and are considered. So, I would certainly suggest you not consider dropping it below 17%.
No, I would, but we were at, we're raising it to 30, but we could drop that, couldn't we?
Yeah, it's just the 30% that we've written into that is aspirational. That's work towards that we have a hurricane that comes through and we are the direct hit. We may need to call upon that. If we have a major failure in a system, God forbid, something within our infrastructure, we may have to call upon that. So it's really a financial insurance capacity at the end of the day.
Well, with getting ready to come into hurricane season, I can understand that. And I get Brian's point.
Well,
I'd like to know what the other commissioners are thinking.
yeah, Tracy's got her hand up.
I've been a proponent of having a little bit extra in there. But in the case of bonds, or in the case of trying to do an infrastructure project, and you may need some money until you get your bond money in, or you can do all these kind of things. I've dealt with it a lot more because I have worked in government and know some of the things. It's not only, it is for emergencies, and it's nice to have a little bit in that reserve when you have a big project that may just come up. And I'll say the culture center that we're redoing, to be able to take a little bit of that money out when the prices increase a lot. So,
Right.
So sometimes, I think it's wise to keep a little bit more than the 17% because we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know about what can happen in the future at all. So to try to cover some of those risks, let's just say you get a grant, but you can go ahead and start. If you have a little bit of money, you can go ahead and start that until you get your grant money, and you can do a lot of things. But if you haven't, not enough reserves in there to do those things, then you're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting on things.
Yeah, you got something.
Yeah,
Point
Nat-
well taken.
Nat's got something here.
no, I was just thinking that we were the 17% and the 30%. I was just thinking that we was going to raise basically our fixed from the 17%. But after seeing the language that's here, I think it gives us great flexibility going forward, because since 2008, we're in a situation where if we do get to the point where we need additional monies just to balance the budget, we do not, and I think unless it didn't pass, but one of the other mechanisms that we used was our enterprise fund to help balance the budget, because we didn't have enough monies. And so now I think there's a definitive restriction on what we could take out of the enterprise fund. So I sort of relented from my initial thinking, because if that should happen, and we don't know what's going to happen, to have some monies to balance. And that's what we were able to do without raising the ad valorem rate to try to generate money. So it's just a good thing, and I'm happy that we're in this position. And I was all, before I really looked at this, I was saying, well, no, we need to go to 25, but I like the 17 with the target of 30. So I just wanted to say that to you all.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment on
Yeah.
that.
T.
So
Michael?
the, we're watching that utility transfer bill closely.
Yes.
I've got my fingers crossed based upon some news I got today that hopefully that's not going to come to fruition this year,
Okay.
but we will keep our fingers crossed all the same. Should something like that happen, yes, you can draw upon your fund balance to offset one-time expenses within that operating budget. You couldn't do it towards personnel or occupancy costs or those types of things, but where you have equipment purchases and things that are part of our operating budget, you could use it towards that, which offsets some of that overall expense. So you're spot on with that. I just also want to share, I think it's awesome and so pleasant to be sitting here having a conversation about how strong our fund balance is and where should we set the number at and how do we best use it, when I can think of other cities that are trying to figure out how do we build a fund balance, because we're getting by, you know, it's like catching a cold when you don't have insurance. So I think that financially, we're in a great position and it's great to be able to have this conversation in such a positive aspect.
Well, okay, Bryce.
Sorry, two
That's
other
right.
questions. If 9B passes on Monday, what percentage would we be at that point?
Right around 30%. I think when we calculate it, we are, in fact, I think it puts you right at 30%.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
What, CJ, when we look at bonds and we're rated, what seems to be, or is there a standard triggering percentage that the bond rate is lower? So if it's, 17%, you're gonna get this pricing. If you're 20%, you're gonna,
No.
There
it's
is
not
no-
that great. Yeah, and there's a lot of factors. I don't think your current debt pay structure.
so basically, if we've got 17% in there, we're probably gonna get a pretty decent rate on a bond if we were to go out and
I would think
secure
so.
one.
Interesting you asked that question, Commissioner Yates. When we last had in our bond rating, it was at the time we were making a significant transfer from the utility fund into the general fund. And it was recommended that we reduce that dependency upon the utility fund, which we have done every year since then, until such time that we got to no more than 12% of their cash operating budget, I believe is how it's phrased. We're there now, and that, our utility bond rating has gone up since that time. We have a call tomorrow, I believe it is, with one of the bond rating agencies. CFO Scott, myself, and our folks from PFM will participate in that. That's a routine thing. So maybe we'll get that question and we can share that back to you. We feel really good about our bond rating and overall where we'll be. But I think that if you were struggling and had no fund balance, then you are subject to have that issue. Whether you have 17 or 30%, I don't know is going to make a whole lot of impact. As the CFO said, it's not that granular. But if there was concern that you don't have fund balance, then certainly that can be impactful. And it's on your rating overall. It wouldn't necessarily be on the interest value of that particular bond, other than to the extent your rating applies to that.
Tracy?
What is our bond rating right now?
No, it's A minus.
AA minus.
You can single A.
I'll look at that and let you know, Tracy. There's two separate ones. There's one on the utility, there's one on the general, so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's A, I don't know. I know we got upgraded recently.
Budget in front of me, but I'll get that to you.
So my thoughts on this are. This is the same discussion that we had with the TDC last year about how much should we keep in reserves, and I was a big advocate for spending the money and let's use the money for projects versus have it sitting in the bank. And and it's the same discussion I have with individuals when we sit down and we do a financial plan for somebody. How much reserve do you really need to have? How much cash on hand do you need to have? And it starts with maybe 6 months of living expenses. So if it costs you $3,000 a month to live, to pay all your bills, maybe $18,000, whatever percentage that is. So if you're a fiscal hawk, then you want to cut taxes. You want to have lower deposits. And we talk about 2008, the recession, 2008. You got to go back to the Great Depression to have the recession that we went through in 2008. That was a bad event. Are we going to have another thing like that? I don't know. But that's what we all are afraid of, is the 2008 scenario. But that was the first time we've had that since the Depression of the late 20s. So are we going to have another 2008? I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe. So where do we go? Well, do we cut taxes? Well, we did that. We did that last time. We did that last budget. We lowered taxes a little bit. I do think 30% from my point of view is too high. I don't think we need to have a 30% reserve, particularly with a city that's growing, where Eric is issuing more permits than ever. We've got people moving in here like crazy. And I suspect that's not going to stop. I mean, I don't see our city backing up dramatically. Maybe we will, but I don't see us backing up dramatically. So my feeling is use the money for deferred maintenance, for projects that we want to get done, and not have it sit in the bank. That's just my philosophy. That's a philosophy that I have about government, is that government should be lean. And I feel like we run a pretty lean operation here. I say that all the time. Winter Haven's pretty lean. We don't have a lot of fat in our budget. We're pretty lean, but we do have extra. And I'd rather use that money instead of have it just sit in the bank. Is it 17% is the number? Comfortable with that? 30% to me is too high, but everybody has to make their own decision on where their comfort level is. In your personal budget, how much money do you want to have in the bank for reserves and for emergencies? How much is too much? I don't know. Everybody's got to make that decision. I feel like 30% is too high for us, but for the situation that Winter Haven's in right now, because I don't think we're going to have another Great Depression type scenario. So
do you think, so we've got the 2 fire departments, we've got all those big projects, and those prices are going up. So I think to know that we're at 30% now, but we have the flexibility to go down all the way down to 17, we've got the money in there, because you figure those projects are going to be more just like Northeast.
right. No, it's good to have the reserves, and don't take me wrong. I like having reserves. It makes our job easier. It makes T's job very much easier when we have reserves. I get that. But where do you draw the point to where you could start giving some back to the taxpayers? When do we do that? And that's a decision that we as a body have to make. Is where are we with that? So
And that's really what I had tried to offer up in working with CJ on this, is that maintaining a threshold of 17%, I think is appropriate. Setting an aspirational goal at 30, you still have the flexibility, as Mayor Pro Tem said, you can drop that down to 17 when you need to and pull those funds and apply them to a project. The other thing that is part of that policy is, my recommendation would be, when you're over 30%, move that into your construction fund and pay off some of the projects with it, so that you are reinvesting it back into the infrastructure that we have.
we'll cut taxes and give some back to the taxpayers.
Well,
do that.
I would caution against cutting taxes in that sense, and I'll probably, get front page news for saying that, because you cut taxes based upon one-time funds that you have. Once they're gone, and if you fall into a pit, you're going to raise taxes to get them back up, and it's much easier to lower them than it is to raise them.
No, I get it, T. I'm not saying on a one-time deal, but I'm saying we have a CIP budget to plan in the future. Gary has a CIP budget where he's planning for the future. Police has a CIP budget they're planning for the future. So we're putting money aside for that kind of stuff. And I don't want to do it for a one-time
A
deal.
lot of it is debt.
What do you mean dead?
I mean, you're borrowing money.
Oh,
on
debt. You said debt.
Debt.
Yeah.
It's a plan, it's a plan, but it's not a funded plan. It's a schedule of wants and desires and projects that need to be done.
So you're telling me the police department, when they plan to buy 10 cars a year at
Cars
the
that we-
top debt.
That's cars we do budget for.
Yeah.
But when Gary has, and we just had this conversation with our team last week, when you've got, $300 million worth of projects that are coming down the pike in utilities, there's not $300 million that's sitting there to pay for those projects.
I get that. I know. I'm not saying that we pay cash for a new sewer line, but I'm just saying we have very smart people. Gary's one of them that's planning for the future on what things are gonna cost, and we have a budget and we try to stick to it. I mean, we had the same discussion with the TDC and came down with the same, I feel like we're carrying too big of a fund balance, and we need to spend the money. But that was me and I lost, so there you go.
I think we have places to put it in projects and, it's like I said, a lot of that is borrowed money. Well, that borrowed money, you still have to make payments on it and you still need some to cover all of that. So
I get it. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule here.
No.
We're having a discussion. It's not cut and dried. I'm just telling you how I feel. I could very well be wrong, but I feel like we need to spend the money. That's what. Or
Yeah, because we're not at the point, we have not. Since I've been up here, have not taken monies out of the utility enterprise fund, I call it. That help balance the budget.
When we get.
I mean, we've
we've been doing
The whole-
transfers.
transferred, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm saying, but those transfers are part of the budgeting process. I mean, that's how we balance the budget and make everything work. And as it was mentioned a little earlier, the auditors said that we needed to lower that amount, that we didn't need to keep making the transfers and really it's balancing the budget, really transferring to balance the budget. And now the legislature is into that arena too. And so the point that I'm making is that I haven't seen a budget in the city of Winter Haven that did not have those transfers. And even with those transfers, in the real hard times, we needed that fund balance money as well to balance. Or the choice would have been to really raise the taxes. That's what we would have had to do if we didn't. If those two things kept us from having to raise taxes. So, and we're having a discussion. So it is, I'll tell you one thing. It's great to be having this discussion with these kind of buddies. I mean, goodness gracious, there's no pressure on it. We could smile and just discuss it.
I look forward to a few months from now when we start talking about the budget, because this is gonna be an interesting conversation. And I get the fact that it's harder to go up than down. But when you have a city that has experienced the growth that we have, and we've had the leadership and management of city staff to get us to this point, it gives the opportunity a higher percentage chance of reducing the millage, even if it's 5, 10, it may not be a huge amount, but other municipalities are probably going to be looking at going up, if not staying the same. Now, I'm not saying we can lower it, but it's going to be an interesting discussion here in a few months.
Oh, yeah.
Can I say
Tracy,
something?
yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
I'd like to say that a couple of things. Any of your enterprise funds do contribute to the general fund to help pay or balance the budget, as you guys are saying. Okay. What I think I heard was that utilities has to get down to 12%.
And it's there.
And it's
now.
there, because you were in exceedance of what is standard for utilities and their contributions to the general fund. Now, solid waste is an enterprise fund. They also contribute. Any other enterprise fund would contribute to a certain amount of their gross revenues. They would contribute a certain amount of that and whatever they've established, you know. I just want to explain that for everyone. It's not, so that's why some of this, if you're talking 30%, it's not 30% in the general fund. It's a 30% kind of overall, right?
But no,
So,
this
30% general fund.
is 30% general fund is where you're at right now.
Okay, so a lot of that may have come from utilities, so you're not going to be.
Well, we've been lowering our utilities contribution every
Yeah.
year for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I guess the point, and I won't belate this point, but if we have this, if we have all this extra money, great. Let's give MJ 2 million instead of $1 million to fix potholes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's figure out ways that we can use this money to help our citizens and do it a little bit more. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to get to is we have some great programs, and I know we're already spending $1 million a year on repaving. Well, let's bump that up to 2 million or so. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get to. I don't want the money just sitting in a bank. I want it doing something else. That's it. All right, we've had enough.
Unless we're making 5% or 6% on that money.
Well, not inflation.
You are making money on
With inflation running 9%, we're still losing.
it. Money on it. You're making interest on it.
Yeah, we're making money, but inflation's still killing us. Look at what these buildings are costing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
can we do the, do we have to do an ordinance or a resolution to change that amount for AJ to increase the paving budget?
well, JP, I was just using that as an example of what I would like to see is to try to use this money for the public good instead of having it just sitting in a bank account somewhere.
I agree.
We probably could.
But because, I mean, we're getting ready to, we've got a bunch of projects that needs to be done. And I'm like you, I'd rather be spending that money instead of it sitting in the bank. But I also see the point about having the rainy day fund.
Right.
I don't know if 17% is going to cover that.
Well, that's what it's been forever. I mean, it's been that way through the recession and we've always been at 17.
It's probably take back up, let's reevaluate things and let staff come to us with a.
Sounds good.
Your policy remains at 17%.
All right.
That's the bottom line, is the policy remains at 17%. If you want us to spend beyond the 30% that's there and bring that number down, I've got more projects than you'll ever be able to afford.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do, but.
Well, I
I'm
know
also
you've
very
got the
cautious with you to say, we need to be smart about what we put in there. We'll give you projects, and if there's things that you want to spend it on, we'll do that.
Let's
We've
get
got a
the
lot of
price
things
on
that are out there.
the fire stations first.
Yeah.
Let's get-
Yeah, and I just think that this is a great discussion, because we're hashing the policy that is being presented to us, but we also know that, as it has been said, that we are not in the budgetary process right now, but we're going to get there. That's going to be coming, so. I'm just happy. I'm really happy that, because I'm sitting here saying, maybe we could, at some point, lower the Avalon rate where it can be advertised is, a lower rate. Right now we can't, even though we reduce, it can't be advertised as a tax decrease, so to speak. So, maybe, we get there. So, but at any rate, that's a discussion for another day and another time.
Amen.
Go ahead, JP.
No, I'm just saying, I agree with y'all.
Okay, sounds great. All right, on to the next one. Where were we? Questions?
I think that's the most discussion we've ever had.
All right, yeah, we got too much money. That's the
I was telling you that. I mean, and we got the newspaper here too. I mean, goodness gracious.
All right, so let's go to ordinance 2312. Again, this is a finance matter. We collect deposits for water, reuse, water, sewer, refuse, all these different things. That money has been typically held in an interest-bearing account that generates on average about $2 per account per year. We have something like 40,000 accounts that we're trying to figure out who gets what interest and make that payment back to each of those individuals as a credit. The cost to manage that far exceeds any benefit in actually doing it. So what we are recommending the commission consider is allowing us to no longer hold those funds in interest-bearing accounts that go back to the depositor or account holder and put them in non-interest-bearing accounts. It is just a massive effort to try and manage that. So that's what that item is specific to.
So T, you were saying that the effort, the expense to manage outweighs the actual.
The average benefit back to the utility deposit account is less than $2 annually. And you've got 40,000 metered accounts that, just through the various software systems and chasing down the account holders and making those credits. Rather than continue that process, our recommendation is that we go to a non-interest bearing account in which to hold the overall deposits.
Okay, well, I don't. You still have to manage that account. I mean, I don't.
Well, that's just a matter of holding the deposits, and those are easier. That's a much easier process.
Okay, and so then when
Account closes or
you just send them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. I feel that we have to be held accountable on this issue. And if it's still, there's 40,000 accounts and $2 is still $80,000. And for the sake of our customers, I feel that we have to do that interest and give it back to them. Feel that that's, in their best interest, and we want to do what's in their best interest.
I got a question.
Oh, Brian.
I can't remember how much my deposit was because it seems like it's transferred from house to house, but what is a deposit amount?
It's $180 on a typical.
180?
For, yeah. And then I think it's like $1. 150 or 180, I'm not sure. It's 150 or 180 for a typical deposit. And then you don't get that interest on your account. It goes to your deposit. And then eventually, when you close your account, you'll get that money back.
You don't do a credit?
It doesn't go on your account, it goes on your deposit.
How often do we find ourselves having to utilize the deposit?
We can't touch the deposit.
I guess what I'm saying is if an account
goes
goes negative or where we have the rights to utilize it, how often does that occur?
I don't know that. But what we do, what utilities does is every month they have to run the interest calculation on the active accounts for that month. So they do it 12 months a year. And then at the end of the year, they post it in their system. And then it gets posted in the financial system.
I guess what I'm potentially getting at is, do we even need to have the deposit beyond 3 years? Let's say, somebody's been in their home for 3 years, the likelihood of us having to actually go in. So you collect a deposit to get everything established, you get going, assuming they've made their payment on time for 36 months. Could we not be in the position to just go ahead and refund the deposit to them?
The whole thing,
Here comes Gary.
the whole deposit?
Yeah, you guys picked these topics tonight, so
Good evening, commissioners. That is a practice that some utilities do put that back as a credit after a certain amount of time, and 3 years is very obvious. You're looking for the stability of the customer if they're stable, they're paying their bills on time, many utilities will reimburse the customer that cost after a certain amount of time. So that is a typical process, and we're currently going through all of our ordinances for utilities. This one just happened to come up first. But that is something that we can definitely look at in the future and that would reduce the workload also on staff. So
That would be the direction I would, personally like to see us go. Because like I say, if they've been in the house for 3 years, they've made every payment on time.
right. So
Gary-
we'll take a good look at that.
Gary, do we not have accounts that don't have deposits that do have to pay a deposit upon becoming delinquent?
If they become delinquent and they close the account, we keep the deposit. Does that answer your question?
I'll need to look into it further. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would be supportive of 02312 with the caveat if we added these other things. So I don't know if we've got to look at this Monday night, if there's enough time.
My suggestion, just from a single subject standpoint, is that we deal with this issue in ordinance 02312, if you're inclined to do that as a single subject, and then come back if that's the will of the commission.
We wouldn't want to just table this and
I mean,
get a
that's up
little.
to the commission. Ultimately, it's a policy matter.
Well, from my point of view, I totally concur with Brian. After 3 years, let's give them their deposit back if they're in good standing. Another question, Gary, while you're sitting there, totally unrelated, but not totally unrelated. Every complaint I get from people that had their waters cut off. I've been a customer for 20 years. I've never been late. I paid you every time and I've never ever had my water cut off. And is there, and this may be more of a question for John, is there a way to give stars to people for every year they're a customer and they pay, and if they get 10 stars, they get an extra month if they're late or before, you know what I mean? Is there some way to give
Like a
that-
rewards program.
awards program? Yeah, let's call that. For people that have been with us for 20 years and have paid on time and they skip their one payment or the bill gets lost in the mail or something and they don't pay. And it always seems to happen on a Friday night and I get the call on Saturday and they had their water cut off.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with any rewards program. That's not saying that we couldn't evaluate the possibility of something along that line. But I hear you playing that, we do have these customers that miss that one payment and they get their water cut off, and it is when that happens, normally we don't charge them the reconnect fee and all of those because we recognize that these are really good customers. So we
It's usually on a Friday night. It's usually some.
well, it's a Friday before a holiday weekend,
Yeah.
Monday we're closed, and it always seems to happen that
Yeah.
way.
And they've been on time for 20 years. I'm just trying to figure out a way legally to give them some leeway.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things
Stars or credits
that
or.
we do make clear is that when we are going into holiday weekends, our timing for cutoffs is adjusted based upon that. And Gary,
That's correct.
I don't think we do cutoffs on Fridays.
We don't do
that
that
very
cutoffs
reason.
on Fridays. So that,
And one observation I'll make, Mayor, as it relates to the issue you raised. As Gary said, I certainly understand it, but we have certain bond covenants that we've, got debt, as we've been talking about, that we pledged wastewater revenues to pay. And one of those covenants is you can't give away water free. And so while you may know that, as you recall, we have some, we have done certain transactions where the city has paid that portion of, of a credit, or we've dealt with. But we never can give away anything. So in terms of rewards program, as Gary said, subject to city manager and staff looking at it, we can look at something, but from a legal standpoint, we've got to be real careful that whatever we come up with does not run afoul of that ongoing covenant, because that is something that, as the rating agencies and others look at, that's something that will be problematic. If we establish some formal policy or rule that would.
Yeah.
That would
And then-
undercut that issue potentially.
I was thinking stars. Every year you pay your bill for 12 months, you get a star or whatever. But, oh, Gary, and I did want to tell you, I've got 2 water bills and one of them was in danger of getting cut off. And the young lady that helped me, I can't remember, I wrote her name down. She could not have been nicer and she went over backwards to help me keep my water on. And she was great. She was young, that's all I know. And I've got her name written down. And the mistake was on you guys. You took my payment from my condo and applied it to my house or my house. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
She did take away one of your stars, just so you know.
But if I could give her a star, I would. And I wish I could remember her name because I wanted to give her a public shout out, but she could not have been nicer and she bent over backwards to help me. And she didn't know I was the mayor. At least she said she didn't know. But
I guarantee you, they know who the mayor is.
she was the sweetest, nicest person, most helpful person that I've ever dealt with in the water department. So kudos for you.
We appreciate that. We do have some really good staff.
Yeah, she was great.
And to answer Commissioner Yates' earlier question about the Haines City annual revenue, that's 582,000 a year,
And so that'll be in place for how long?
at least 3 years.
So we're made whole on our 1.5 investment.
Yeah.
And that, because is there a net, like, do we have, we've got to pay for the water we're pumping, don't we, or no?
Well, there's some power costs, and chemical costs, yes.
But all in all, we should be about break even over that.
Should be
3-year
about
period.
break even. And it's about resiliency, really, is long-term resiliency for both utilities.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All righty,
And it's fun tonight.
go 2315.
So 2315 and 2316 are land use and zoning. This is a property that was annexed, I believe, back earlier this year. Let me just look real quick. Yeah, January 23rd. This is down south of B&B Ranch off of Old Bartow Lake Wells Road. So south of County Road 653, which is, you can see off to the left there in your image. So this is just assigning land use and zoning. We can, Eric will discuss that more on Monday.
Is there a public hearing on that tonight?
Transmittal.
No public hearing this evening, sir. This is just for workshop agenda.
Monday night,
Okay,
new business endorsement of the community CDBG cycle.
So this is utilizing some of the CDBG funds that we have through the county and allocating those to further along the Lake Conine Recreation Project. I'm not real sure what to share with you beyond that. This again is one of those projects that we're going to be looking for additional monies down the road to build out. We've begun the process of design and getting ready for surcharging out there. We'll probably need about an additional $800,000 to $900,000 for this project to build it out in full. And this is one of the strategies to put some of our CDBG allocation of $283,599 towards that project. So just furthers along the budget to get it fully complete.
Developers agreement for 4-star.
This is the Harmony Project. So this development agreement addresses a number of things, clarifies and defines the location of the roadway network, phasing schedule for the realigned Westlake Eloise Road, the requirements for sidewalks, which Mr. Mayor, I know you'll be interested in this. They're on both sides of all local internal roads. Affirmation of the developer's obligation to construct the roundabout, which is under construction today. They also have to do some long-term traffic analysis on some other roads, particularly as if their ordinance is revised or amended to add units or change uses. It discusses the easement over this easement to the city for a future monitoring well, as well as transferring the Southwest Florida Water Management District consumptive use permit they have at present time to the city. So it just formalizes all of those conditions that have been negotiated to this point into a developer's agreement.
Okay. On to city manager, you want to do this?
I'll do
tonight?
those. I'm going to do those on Monday.
Okay.
Including the liaison reports, but I do have one thing in addition, if I you would indulge me this evening. I'll pass out to you. That's the one for you as well. And Commissioner Powell will make sure one of these is provided to you. The document you're receiving is a needs assessment that was done in partnership between the Give Well Foundation and the United Way of West Central Florida. I share this with you because we are in the process of looking at our grant and aid applications. And we this year, on my chart here, I told you we had a lot of people interested in our grant and aid applications. The amount requested this year totals $824,000 from the community. I'm going to quote Commissioner Powell on that at some point.
Wow.
Our total funding, now that doesn't include funding for the EDC, the Chamber, Polk Vision, or Main Street. That is just
Okay.
the partners, the nonprofit agencies that are out there. Last year, we funded $305,000. So roughly a difference of, let's just say, what, $520,000 thereabout. We had 19 new applications this year. We had 26 returning from last year of the 31 that we funded in the general category, and then 2 in the larger category, which were, those that are over $20,000. So the application period's closed. It closed last Friday. And the Grant and Aid Application Review Committee is scheduled to get their binders this Friday. With this many folks asking for money, I feel we need to give them some guidance. So the document I gave you, this community assessment from that was done by, again, Give Well Foundation and United Way. They actually did it for 3 counties, Polk, Highlands, and Hardee County. And what I've given you is just the data that pertains to Polk County. But a couple of things that I think may be helpful in guiding, the intent of the grant and aid program is let's help prop up services within our community that are meeting a need. So when I look through what the United Way's final document showed where the areas of need were, economic and employment opportunities. So programs that would speak to development of work skills and preparing people for the workforce. Housing was another major category. So programs that help address homelessness or affordable housing programs fall within that. Education was a major need that they had found. And you'll see all the statistics and statements of need within their report here. But one of the things that I found interesting was that the greatest population growth in our county is anticipated among the 18 and under age group, which underscores the need for more education and childcare services. So programs that are geared towards helping improve childhood education performance and providing for pre and post-school enrichment programs are a defined need within the community. Food security, feeding programs, whether that's food pantries or feeding outreach efforts like Meals on Wheels and some of those. Transportation infrastructure was another category, and we don't get many, if any, applications in that realm. And the final one was about quality of life, which speaks to programs that would be geared towards mental health, as well as recreational opportunities for folks. I share this with you mainly for informational purposes this evening because we've got an amazing group of individuals that serve on that grant and aid committee, and they're going to have to make some decisions on how to, who to fund and who not to fund. And I think it would be improper for us as a guiding body, and certainly as the commission, the final decision maker, to not give them some level of direction. What I would recommend is that because this was a 2-year study that was done by very reputable organizations and identifies very specific categories of need within our county, that if the commission is so inclined, you might consider giving that as direction to your grant and aid advisory committee in how to prioritize the distribution of funds this year, because you're tackling, you know, identified needs within the community versus just the random, hey, I'd like to do this or do that. You're actually addressing, as I said, a documented need. The other thing that we'll need to do is give them some threshold of expenditure. Granted, we're early in the budget process. As I said, last year, our funding allocation was $305,000 that we awarded out. My anticipation is that's what we have in the budget as of today for that effort. If we need to increase that by a certain amount to give consideration for more folks, then we'll take some direction from you on that as well. But just wanted to kind of plant that seed this evening so you can begin thinking about that.
That's good, T, and I appreciate you bringing this, and I feel like certainly the number one thing, they should be Winter Haven charities. If it's somebody from another.
That's a given, certainly is.
That should be number one. Number two, we already have a real emphasis on homelessness, particularly for children. I feel like we should continue on with that. And then feeding people. Those are the biggies, you know, people are hungry. And of course, like you mentioned, mental health, that's another thing that goes hand in hand with homelessness. I think we have quality of life pretty well covered because we've got a great quality of life here in Winter Haven, but you want us to try to come up with something tonight, or you just?
No, I think if we could have some conversation on it Monday, I really just want to put this in your hands so you could see what United Way came away with is what the needs are they see in Polk County. I think you have an opportunity to give direction on how to use your grant and aid funds to go out. Certainly, there's more requests than we have funding for, so there's going to be people that are funded and people that aren't. And I think it would be appropriate for the commission to give some direction to your committee on these are the things.
I agree with that. Nat,
I'm just wondering, Chief, with the applications that have come in, have they been vetted?
We have gone through them. They meet the criteria. They are, they're kind of all over the place and what people are asking for and the variety of organizations. There are certainly organizations that, meet those criteria that I just spoke of, or those service area needs. But yeah, we've got a list ready, and we'll put the binders in the hands of our grant and aid committee at the end of the week.
we do need to give them some direction instead of letting them just thrown into the wolves.
I know we don't get any information at this stage, but I'm just wondering, T, of all of these applications, how much you've given us, like that spreadsheet that you have there?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see that spreadsheet.
We can certainly provide this to you.
Yeah, so that I can get an idea in my own mind. What are they asking for, and
Who are they?
and who they are, and how much money? Now, I guess my final question is the numbers that you showed, that those are gross numbers. But based on the policy that we already have in place, what would that number be? We've established where we said, I think first time.
Right, so we limit first-time applicants to a maximum ask of 5,000.
Right.
Returning applicants, maximum ask of 20,000. That's just the maximum they can ask for, but as you recall, last year, we funded a lot of folks at $3,000 or less.
No, but I'm just saying, I guess my question is, the number that bottom line number that you gave.
824 million or 824,000.
Yes, was that the number based on 5?
It's based upon their request.
Okay, well, see, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
I think we would need to know if we were going to at least talk about it. how many of those organizations, based on what we've already given, is our guidelines, so to speak, our rule, that first time applicants can't get no more than 5.
That's what this is based upon. So they were, that's already factored in here, that, so
Okay,
they
well,
were
that-
capped at what they could ask for.
So-
Yeah.
so-
And they're Winter Haven based charities?
well, I was thinking that was gonna make it easier.
It doesn't reduce it. They all asked for the maximum that they were allowed to ask for within their particular.
Which is 5,000.
Yeah.
For a lot of.
Or 20.
That's what happens when you put down minimum.
I think would guidance be, I think we're a long way away from saying, okay, this is the number, you know, that we would put towards this. But I think guidance maybe could be, if everyone else is in agreement, that I think there'd be willingness to increase it, but we need their recommendations. And so I don't know that we want to trap them in a 305,000 number, but as they're reviewing it, maybe the commission would not be opposed to an increase to some level, but it's gonna really depend upon what these applications look like and what their recommendation is. With that,
Tracy, what the hell was it here?
I think, for me, when we've got the list here of the high points that we really need to look at these and say, these are, rank these or whatever as to our preferences or whatever, like housing. For us, it's affordable housing, so that one we're already working on it in a different area, so we can put, take that one out of the list, but some of the education, some of the food security, the transportation, it's kind of hard to work if you don't have some sort of transportation, even if you got a job.
And I think that's one of the commission's already making a commitment to through your funding of LAMTED.
Okay.
But, you know, the reality is, you all, that with the categories that are in here, when you're looking at first time applicants, the amount of money that we're going to provide, I mean, realistically, can they even do anything with that? You know what I'm saying? I just don't know what kind of agencies they are and what, you know what I'm saying? So, but when I look at this, and we're a nonprofit too, and we don't apply, but I'm just saying, if I was going to address some of these needs, it would be hard pressed to do it with $5 grand or $3 grand.
Well, if you do the math, you said there's 18 new people.
There are 19, I believe it's
19.
19.
Okay.
19.
That's $95,000. That's not that much compared to 800. And so the people that have already got money or where they're the ones that are hitting it the hardest.
Or the $20,000 ones, I think.
Yeah, maybe we need to lower top limit or well, as far as what Brian was talking about, I think we ought to give them a number of 305 and then agree that we probably would up it after having conversations with the committee. But let's give the committee, hey, we're going to fund where we funded last year. And if you come back to us and say, hey, we really need another 50 grand, we'll have that discussion with them after they've had all the hearings. You know what I mean? I think we need to come up with a number. And I think a good starting point is what we did last year and then let them do their job. But if they come back and say, we really need more money, this is why.
You mean when you say for the ones that we funded last year?
Well, if the committee comes back and says, look, you gave us 305 to spread out over everybody, we really need 350 or 320 or whatever. This is why, and then but we need to give them a number.
Yeah, but I think, I hear what you're saying, but with some of the ones that we funded last year, did they stay at the same tier or did they go high?
They certainly asked for more. I'll give you an example. So there was an agency last year that was funded at $3,000 that this year asked. They were funded at $3,000 last year. They've asked for $20,000 this year.
See that, the new people are only asking for $95,000.
That's what I'm saying.
So all the rest of the money is going to people that have already gotten money from us. So they
Right.
realize they need to up their ante. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, okay.
You also have some agencies that we have traditionally funded at much higher levels, that there was a commitment from the commission last year to maintain those, such as the Boys and Girls Club was one of those. The PEP Center was a higher one. The Ritz Theater was another one that you funded at higher levels because that was a historical partner of the city in one way or another. I'll also tell you that of the $824,000, there is there are 5 of those applications that wanted to come in at the single initiative level. As you recall, there was a $40,000 initiative level that they wanted to make some significant project. That totals $180,000 of that. And my recommendation would be that, given the number of agencies that have applied, that the city not consider those single initiatives this year, because one of those is equal to 8 individual new applications.
Well, we've got this wonderful committee. They've all agreed to serve. Let's give them some guidelines and let them do their job.
Yeah.
And then we can talk to them and ask them what they need.
Yeah, well, I'm just listening to that last comment that he made about, that's a tremendous
That's an ask.
ask. I mean, and if we don't give some guidelines on that, you don't want us to do that. You won't, because unless he gives us that sheet, we wouldn't even know that. And then we are not going to delve into it that deep.
So I'll make sure you have a copy of the full list of
I'll go with you.
applications.
No, I go with what the mayor just said. I go with what the mayor just said.
Go with what we did last year.
Well, we got to give these guys some guidelines, and let's say
Yeah, give them some
305.
guidelines and let them work it.
Yeah, and say
And because we ultimately have the final say anyway. I mean,
But
it's just.
we can give them some emphasis. Like, to me, homelessness with children is one of the things I would like to see. So would feeding of people, but ultimately the committee has to decide that. But I think if we tell them sort of what's important, they'll know. But at the end of the day, they're gonna listen to all these people make their presentations and come back and make a recommendation to us.
They'll review the applications. Last year, we didn't have a single presentation from any of the members. They're invited to attend the hearing, and they can make presentations if they choose.
That was at Nora Mayo, or was that
Yes,
2
sir.
years ago?
That was several years back.
Okay. Good.
If an entity is located within the downtown CRA or the Florence Villa CRA, if they're located within that entity and they serve some level of capacity, I guess, for example, the Ritz, would those funds, their requests don't necessarily have to come out of the 305, that could come from the CRA?
The Ritz, as I recall, and I'm gonna look to Eric on this, receives money from both the CRA and from the general fund, but Main Street the same way.
But we could exclude them. Let's say we weren't gonna give them, I don't know what the amounts
think-
were requested, but if you said, okay, what we're gonna fund you is gonna come from the CRA and not the general fund, would that give more capacity for the other?
It
requests?
would, so long as the funding is eligible within the CRA plan. And that would have to come from that would need to be vetted through your advisory committee and your CRA board.
And when we're talking about funding with CRAs, we got to be very careful because those are very statutorily limited under chapter 163.380.
So T, what exactly do you want from us Monday night? What would you like for us to do? So we can think about it over the weekend.
Can give you all bubble gum on Monday night. Here's what I would like. What is your priority for what gets funded?
Okay.
And my purpose for giving you the United Way program is that There's somebody that went out and did research on what the needs are that need to be addressed within Polk County, and I'm certain that Winter Haven's not much different from that. Give us some guidance that we can share with your 5-member board so that they can make some decisions on your behalf. If you
How
want us
specific do you want us to be?
as specific as you want to be,
Okay.
we can have them begin the process with the same funding amount that they gave last year. And then create a waiting list behind that. If you had another $50,000 to put towards it, another $100,000 to put towards it, how would you allocate those dollars?
Well, I think that should be between us and the committee and not public. How much?
Well, I don't know that you can do that, Mr. Mayor. I think that whatever that number is, that's, I mean, this is a public process.
5, and if we're gonna go up, then we either quantify that or we don't, and then all of a sudden we've just gone from 305 to 350. We just need to tell them that. I just don't think we tell them that at this point, but we are gonna stick with 305. And we will decide at a later date if we'll raise that up.
You know, the one thing that you said, that she has said tonight, is that the bulk of the money is with the people that we funded before,
I'd say
not
70% of it,
the new people.
75%.
I think you go with the 305, and that's what I was speaking of more in generalities, like there is potentially a willingness for the commission to increase that based upon what your recommendations are, and then we gather up and review that at that point.
That's good. Right. We're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Basically.
That'll work.
Okay.
That'll work.
Question.
I'll ask for guidance on Monday night on how you want to prioritize.
But we'll give it to you better.
What else?
That's all for me this evening, sir.
I
think
just
that's
wanna-
quite
I-
enough.
I'm about to adjourn, but I gotta tell you, I got a complaint against one of your employees today, one of your high-level employees.
Oh, I hope it was me.
No, it was not. It was your Parks and Recreation Director.
Okay.
And this guy cornered me at lunch and really just blistered me on some things that she's done and really not done. And I was defending her, and finally he said, look, she never called her daddy enough. So. It happened to be her dad. It was her daddy. It was so fun, and we had a great laugh. And so-
That's a good one. That's
All right. I know I was with several of you this morning at a swearing in ceremony, but I'd like to know where you guys all went for lunch today. This has been raucous.
I was eating lunch with Julie's dad. That's what. Yeah, I can't blame him. Okay, anything else? All right, we're adjourned. See you Monday night.